I was reading an article online about how they wanted to bring dinosaurs out of extinction, and it's absolutely hilarious to me because there are so many people out there that have said there are too many Jurassic Park films. Clearly not. I mean, we shouldn't be trying to bring back dinosaurs. That's literally the beginning of every single Jurassic Park film. They always start off in cages and then they end up eating everybody. On a side note, if I'm going to get eaten by a dinosaur, please let it be a T-Rex. I don't want to die slowly and painfully. Anyways, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Let's get serious here in today's video because I actually did want to touch on the subject that we've been covering now for the past couple of days. If you guys have watched any of my previous videos, you guys will know that I've been extensively covering this whole Kith slash Hasbro slash Jaded toy situation, where essentially all three manufacturers decided to come together and give us, like, I guess, quote unquote, brand new collectibles, which in reality, they weren't really brand new collectibles. I saw a couple of comments where people mistakenly assumed that this was the first time that either one of these manufacturers was working on Marvel versus Capcom, which is actually 100% false. Yes, they don't, I don't think they can actually use the tagline or the title of Marvel versus Capcom in any of their releases. It just doesn't make any sense, primarily because the license is owned by the other competing company. So in this particular case, Jada could use the Capcom logo, and then Marvel could actually use, or I should say Hasbro could use the Marvel logo. They can never really do a quote unquote crossover between both companies because it would essentially be butting heads. However, now because there is an official crossover between both Hasbro and Jada Toys, they can officially use the Marvel vs. Capcom moniker. However, they have actually been working on that particular video game behind the scenes. Hasbro has released a ton of different Gamerverse action figures based on the Marvel vs. Capcom gaming franchise, and Jada Toys has done the same. But in reality, once you actually get through all of that nonsense, it's just repainted action figures with the Kith logo. That's it. I think the packaging is brand new and it actually has the title of Marvel vs. Capcom, but that's it. That's the only real difference between these figures and their original counterparts, which in the case of Jada Toys, it's just essentially reissuing the same figure. And in the case of Marvel, or the Marvel Legends line from Hasbro, they're actually giving you a single action figure that originally was released in a 2-pack. That's the only real difference here. Don't be confused. You're essentially just paying for the Kith logo. Now, honestly, I hope this is the last time that I have to talk about this particular subject, because that's usually what happens when you're jumping the gun. When you want to cover things as soon as they happen, sometimes you end up covering the same exact situation or the same subject throughout multiple different videos, and that's what's happening. The original video was just to announce the crossover. The second one was to talk about the original price point, and now we're talking about resellers. We're talking about scalpers, the people that are really taking advantage of the community here, and honestly, it's a little bit sickening. Now, usually when you see markups online, it's like they take a Marvel Legends action figure that is like a Target exclusive that usually retails for about $25, and they're trying to resell it at, like, I don't know, $45, $50. I don't know exactly how thin their profit margins are, but they're extremely thin. I've floated around the idea that it's not legitimate, like, scalpers, people trying to flip figures. It's like legitimate people on the inside, whether they're getting stuff directly from Hasbro or they have some sort of connections as like a Target employee with a, you know, an extra little discount on top, or whatever the case may be. In this particular situation, we don't know that to be the case. However, I was scrolling through eBay, and, well, it happened. There are a ton of different resellers trying to get rid of their Kith crossover action figures, and you have Wolverine going for as high as like 170 to 180 with shipping and everything included. You have Captain America in the low 100s last time I checked it. And don't even get me started on Ryu and Mega Man, which both are selling for well over $100. There are people that are selling the entire set for about $500 plus shipping. You heard that correctly. $500 for an entire case of these figures, which is essentially all 4 figures featured in the wave. Now, the most interesting part about all of this is you don't really know exactly who's picking these figures up or who's interested in them, especially from the resellers. Is it like the people that are legitimately Kith fans that actually wear all of the merchandise, that actually buy like the little skateboard decks and all of their collectibles? Is it those people that are genuinely interested in this crossover? Is it the Marvel Legends collectors, or is it the Jada Toys collectors? I'm not 100% sure what's going on here, and I know there were some people in the comment section that claimed that there had been a ton of different crossovers between Hasbro and other big like manufacturers back in the day. Personally, I am not familiar with any of this. Maybe they have done something in the past that I'm not familiar with, but as far as I'm concerned, they had never worked with a big manufacturer, a clothing manufacturer like Kith before, and it feels like this could be something that they start to do in the foreseeable future. I mean, these sold out almost immediately. I'm assuming there was like little to no risk on the side of Hasbro and Jada Toys. They just provided the collectible to Kith, and then they essentially had to worry about the distribution and whether the figures were actually going to sell. So there's very little risk on their end. They're essentially just repackaging and repainting an action figure that already exists. There's no new sculpt work, there's no re-engineering or retooling of these figures. You're essentially just getting the same thing. And so for them, it just made sense to try to take that next step forward and just allow Kith to handle the hard part, which is essentially shipping and distributing all of these collectibles. So apparently people are making like well over $100 in profit off of these figures. I'm shocked. My mind is blown. Now, I did assume that the figures were going to fly off the shelves and they were going to sell incredibly quickly and there was going to be a reseller market. But to this degree, to this extent, I wasn't sure that this was going to play out this way. And honestly, I'm kind of fascinated to see where Hasbro and Jada Toys takes this, because I could ideally see them essentially just doing the same thing over and over. They could essentially get every single figure that they have at this point, give them the Color 2 variants, although I think Jada Toys has already done some of that as SDCC exclusives or just exclusives to certain conventions. I think they did it with Chun-Li, and was it Ken maybe that got a Player 2 variant, or was it M. Bison? I don't know. A few of those figures have had color variations that are either store exclusives or just Color 2 variants for like a convention of some kind. So I'm going to assume that their roster is a little bit smaller, but Hasbro hasn't done that at all. So they could essentially just take, at this point, whether it's the Venom, Omega Red, War Machine, so on and so forth, Psylocke, Thanos, and just give them Player 2 color palettes, do the whole quote-unquote crossover event, just give them a new packaging, a new paint job, and just mark these figures up to no end. And I know there were some people that said that you were actually paying the markup just because of Kith's involvement, where I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate. I mean, I do believe that the markup is mostly because of Kith and their involvement with these collectibles, but you're not going to make me believe that there's not an extra little percentage in there for Hasbro and Jada Toys. Otherwise, what would their incentive be? Why would they do something like this to just make the same amount that they were going to make prior, with at least some risk involved, I'm assuming? I don't know. Honestly, I just find this really fascinating. It's not necessarily like the end of the world. I feel like as collectors, we tend to be a little bit dramatic sometimes. Something like this happens and, we want to shout it from the hilltops. But at the same time, I'm a little bit worried. I mentioned this in the previous video, but I do believe that this is something that they could do, which I think is a dirty move. I said it before. If you want to just make like a really weird color palette that isn't accurate to anything, like it's its own thing, that's cool. Do some crossovers, pick up another company, do whatever it is that you feel like you need to do to maximize your profits. But when you're actually putting something that is necessary to complete a collection or to complete a display, in this case, the Player 2 variants, which a lot of people do really want in their collection, I think it's a little bit of a dirty move from either one of these manufacturers. As I mentioned, it's not the end of the world. It's not anything to like lose your mind over. It's just something interesting, okay? Keep it in mind. It could be something that they do in the foreseeable future. And we don't know. Maybe eventually they do a crossover where it's not Marvel versus Capcom related. Like, could you imagine if they made like the end-all version of like a prototypical Spider-Man with all of the new articulation, and they made it exclusive to one of these crossover events? What if they made like the best looking Carnage action figure, or Venom with extra tendrils and extra accessories, and they made it exclusive exclusive to one of these crossover events. I don't know. It would be kind of frustrating, and I think moving forward, it is something to definitely keep your eye on. But yeah, if you guys are interested in any of these figures, unless you're a big time baller with a few extra Benjis just falling out of their pockets because they have so many bills in there, go ahead, but just be very cautious, be very weary. These are the same figures, just repainted, repackaged. They slapped the Kith logo on there, and they're now swimming in dough. And not to mention the scalpers and the action figure flippers, they're also swimming in dough. So I guess everybody wins except the people that really wanted this in their collection. Those people are kind of hung out to dry. But I'm very curious to see what all of you guys have to say. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you guys plan on picking up any of these? Will you pay over $100 for any of these? Are you that much of a hardcore collector? I'm actually curious to see if anybody will say that they will, or were you able to actually reach the pre-order window? I'm very curious. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to stay safe out there. Enjoy the hobby. Pose your action figures. Play around with them. There's a bunch of negativity going on. At the end of the day, it's important to kind of enjoy those brief little moments of just like peace and calm, and just enjoy it. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.